in my shadow. Yeah. Anyways. As you guys can tell, I'm not getting a lot of sleep lately, so I've gone off the deep ends and I'm taking you with me. Welcome Snowman 1973 and Dan Snow's Wooden Toy fans. Another episode of What the Hell is Eric Doing? So we're going to work on a simple toy since my brain is going haywire. And already cut out part of it. It is a simple flatbed truck. I've already cut the body out and I'm using pre-made wheels. So I'm going to get to putting this bed together. So simple glue up. Gotta sand all the pieces, make sure everything's happy, make sure everything's flat, and then after all that's said and done, put everything together. Yes! As I go off the deep end, I like to have all sorts of fun with sharp objects and things that can cut your hand off. Just kidding. I'm not quite that tired. I'm just in a good mood, so bear with me. For this glue up, it's a pretty simple process. Just pretty much you're making sure everything is nice and sanded and square before you actually put anything together. The two side walls and then the bed ends here will give you a rough mock-up. It's going to be a very simple frame that you're putting together. And then once you get your frame glued up, then everything is going to go on this piece here and the whole thing gets glued onto the truck body. Now the truck body is this big guy here. So your finished product, minus the wheels, it's going to look something like this. So that gives you a quick look of what everything looks like. The body is the same 1.5 inch thick laminated plywood that we like to use because it is just so durable, so easy to make, and it just works. So, plus it gives you an interesting stripe design to your toys, and if you don't like that, you can always just paint over it and make it a solid color. So getting to the sanding and the gluing. Alrighty, so I'm going to be using our 120 sanding block. Get a nice sanding finish on all the flat sides. Just a simple finish, because I'm going to be doing a finish sanding to once all the pieces are glued together, so that everything is sanded square. Anyways, you get the gist of things. I'll get these pieces sanded up and be right back. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is whenever you're sanding solid wood, especially, as opposed to like plywood where it really doesn't matter as much, always want to sand with along the grain of the wood. That way it just seems to give it a much better finish, and the sanding block doesn't catch on the grains and rip something free and give you more work than you need to deal with. Now, on the end grain, there's not really anything you can do about that other than just sand it, but you get my point. So, alright, so let's get to the getting. I'm going to be making everything square, so I'm going to be using a small machinist square that my father has, and that way I can get the frame squared up before I clamp everything and glue it together. Come to find that these little micro clamps, these little sliding clamps that you can pick up at pretty much any hardware store. I mean, I think even Harbor Freight carries them for cheap, so that would be your most economical way to get them. Oh, these things work great on toys because they're small, don't apply a lot of clamping force, plus they have these plastic jaws to keep you from marring up your pieces. Now, I'm going to be gluing the rails together before I glue everything to the flatbed, because that way I'll be able to make sure everything is square and that everything is flat, so that when I glue the frame or the side rails onto the flatbed, I can then sand the flatbed to the size of the frame instead of trying to guesstimate everything. And my camera's about to run out of battery. Lovely. Alright. Be back in a minute, guys. Alright. So gluing everything together. Now, one thing with toys is you want everything to be square, because you want to put out a good product for your customers. You want to put something out that looks decent, let alone functions properly. So And with toys, it's not just about the looks, it's about how it works as well. Oops. Oh. Okay. Leaving glue in a hot garage and then having everything cool down. Now all that glue wants to go somewhere. No problem. I'll use it on my project. So there. Yeah. Like I said, I'm tired. So deal with it. I know. You're tired, Eric. Why aren't you going to bed? You wouldn't. Yeah, well, that would be the smart thing to do. Anyone who's been watching my channel for any amount of time knows that's not really what I do. I prefer to do things for my fans instead of for myself. So, alright, so that piece is all nice and square according to the square. So I'm going to get that clamped up, start that one drying, and then I'll make the other piece and then square them all up together. No! It became unsquare. What am I going to do? We're going to use enough glue so that the damn thing holds together. That's what we're going to do. Alright, let's try this bad boy one more time. One more thing. Yeah, I know, my camera angles aren't the greatest and I get my big mitts in the way. Well, that's the problem with having large hands when you're trying to do videos. Doesn't really help much. So, alright, so I've already created one of the L's and now I'm going to create the other one using that same little machinist square that I've been using. Put that one aside, let that dry, get this one squared up and get some glue on it. I'm of the mind of almost using more glue than you need, because you can always remove what squeezes out. You don't want a weak joint. Alright, get that squared up so I can move you out of the way. Now I have to clamp you. How do I clamp? I must clamp you. And kaboom. Alright, which way did that go together? Okay, this is what I mean by not using enough glue. When you use an open grain wood like poplar, especially if you're gluing it into end grain, same thing goes when you're painting or staining end grain. It tends to absorb the liquid like a sieve, or like a sponge rather, and just suck it right in, and then you have nothing left to work with. So, make sure everything's happy and square, and is it? Yes, it is. Now we can clamp it together. Or it was. It was, and then, what happened? I moved it. Bloody hell. Alright, one last go around. I can do this. I can. I am not just a scroll sawer. I think. Maybe I'm just a scroll sawer, because this simple little 90-degree joint is arguing with me greatly. I'm trying to be very gentle with the clamp so that when I do apply pressure to the joint, it doesn't move the boards and shift them so they're off 90. Alright, so those have to dry, so I can then glue the two pieces together. So I'll let those do their thing and be right back. Okay, at this point, all the sides are glued, everything's clamped together. I've already wiped off the excess glue that squeezed out of the joints when I clamped them. Now I'm going to give this a good amount of time to dry so that I have nice solid joints, because I'm going to be doing some sanding on it once everything's happy over on the oscillating belt sander, and that thing can pull apart any joint that's not glued well. So I'm going to leave this to dry pretty much for the next hour or two, even though it's a small amount of glue. Give it a chance to absorb into the wood and make a nice strong joint. And I'm repeating myself, and I'm tired, so I'm going to pick this up tomorrow and finish up the project for you guys then. Hey guys, Eric here again. Oh, it's the next day. As you can see, it's nice and sunny outside here in the neighborhood. I stupidly went and left this project on the workbench last night, and my father woke up, and being the worker that he is, he went to it, and he's already painted the body that nice bright red, and glued the sidewalls onto the flatbed for me. So pretty much all I have left to do is cut the axles to length, glue the body onto the flatbed, and it's done. So I'll get the axles cut for it and show you everything once I mock it up. Okay guys, so the bed of the truck is all glued together, all happy and square and one solid piece. So now what I need to do is sand everything flat. I'm going to just use the oscillating belt sander here and get that going. After I'm done with that, I need to mark where center is on the bed so that it'll line up, or I can line it up when I get it on the truck body. And I need to mask off the area that's going to be glued so that when I put on the primer and then the paint, this thing isn't going to stick out, or is not going to have a painted surface that'll peel off when I apply the glue. Quick check to see if I sanded everything square, and yeah, it's off by a little bit. It's not too bad, I can fix that. Much better. Okay. Ooh. Ooh. Forgot to turn on the dust collector. Ugh. Okay, there we go. That's better. Alright, so, all noisiness aside, I'm going to do a quick surface sanding on the bottom of this so that it's nice and smooth, and once I get it, all the sawdust off of it, I'll go ahead and prime it up and get it ready for painting. Now this flat board that my father made has two different grit sandpaper on it, a 220 and a 320 if I remember correctly. And since the surfaces on top of this piece aren't completely flat, I'm just going to use the flat board to get everything good and even before I paint it, because otherwise those little raised edges are going to stick out like a sore thumb. It doesn't really take a whole lot to make something flat. You just got to work at it. Right up the nose. Beautiful. Okay. So the surface of this is now nice and flat. So I can go ahead and remove all the sawdust and get it primed up for painting. Since this is for kids, I'm probably going to break all these corners with a little bit of hand sanding, because you don't want a kid to cut their hand open on your toy. Oops, and I'm doing all of this out of frame. Sorry guys. Now I'm using some 320 paper, so it's not taking off a lot of material. It's just doing just enough round over to make everything nice and clean. I'm going to pause you guys here and I'll get set up for the priming. Now I'll admit I am not the best painter in the world, and we all know this. I'm going to do my best to try and show this to you guys without spray painting everything the wrong color. Now one thing I need to do is mark dead center on this guy before I start painting it, so that I know where it's going to line up on the truck. Okay, so I have dead center marked. Now granted you're going, well, you're about to paint it, why did you mark it? Well, the mark is going to be covered by masking tape, so that way the mark will still be there when I glue it to glue everything together. Now I need to figure out how much of this bed is going to hang over the butt of the truck body. Just going ahead and just putting a line where the back of the body is. That tells me where I can end my tape line so that I don't have some bare wood on the bottom of it once I'm done painting. Tape wise, I'm just going to be using some blue painter's tape. The beige masking tape works just as well. I'll get it right sooner or later, honest. Right, so that you can see it, what I've done is I've marked off center where the end of the bed is, and then where the sides of the truck body are, so that's where my masking tape's going to sit. I know, all these little details for a little toy. Well, like I said before, you want it to look good for your customers as well as function well. So, right then, yeah, I think I'm being just a little bit too picky about all this. But, oh well. Okay, so I'm going to put on a couple different coats of primer. Make sure I get everything nice and even. Since there's so many different surfaces to paint on this thing, it's going to be step-by-step process here. I'm using some Krylon Color Master primer. It's for metal, wood, and, as they say, more, so pretty much it primes anything. There we go, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to let that primer set up and soak into the wood and be all happy, and I'm going to do one more coat of primer before I paint the bed black. Okay, well, while I've been working on that toy car, or toy truck rather, I've also been working on some other projects, mainly scrolling projects, because that's what I'm good at. What you're looking at right now is part of a puzzle that I'm cutting out, and it's this guy right here. Let me see if I can put the thing back together. Yes, let's try to line up 12 different pieces at the same time. Come on. There we go. Okay. Now this is a Dragons in the Sky, an Asian dragon puzzle, and in the process of cutting out, still have quite a few pieces to go. I'm making it out of 3/4 inch poplar. I wanted to go with a thick wood because being a puzzle, I wanted the pieces to be durable. This and the Griffin puzzle that I'm going to do are out of this book. Oops, helps if I scroll it out, doesn't it? Are out of this book right here, Fantasy and Legend Scroll Saw Puzzles. Now I picked this book up over at my local woodcraft store. It was a see if you can focus it out. It was a $15 book. So some very interesting puzzles are in this book. Most of them are obviously fantasy creatures, like you have your centaur, you have a baby dragon playing with a ball, all sorts of different stuff. Let's see, what do we have here? This phoenix is one that I definitely want to try soon, but I don't have the right woods for it yet, so I'm going to wait on that one. This is another one of the scene puzzles. It's actually a dragon attacking a castle, so I'll get that one done. Oh, probably in the next couple weeks or so, because I want to finish the Asian dragon puzzle first. I love the amount of detail in this puzzle. and hopefully that gives you a better look at it. Nope, that's too close. There you go. I love the amount of detail in this puzzle. Like I said, I have a few of the pieces cut out, but nothing finished yet. To get this puzzle to look proper, I'm going to be staining the pieces several different colors of stain so you can see the difference between the dragons, the clouds, the trees, and the rolling stream and things like that. So, anyways, guys, just figured I'd give you an update on my other projects while I'm working on the truck. Okay, the bed is now primed and working on its first coat of satin black. It has a bit of a glossy sheen right now, but that's because the paint was literally just applied. The bed has been painted. It has 2 coats of primer, 2 coats of satin black Krylon, and what I've done now is they're glued together and they're clamped so that everything dries where it's supposed to be, and I just protected all the paint with with pieces of paper towel while it dries. Get to the axles and tires. Now the tires, I'm not going to paint. I'm going to stain those with an ebony stain, so they'll still be black. It'll just give a nice contrast to all the paint, because paint wears off, stain doesn't. So it's better to stain the wheels to keep them looking right. Okay, so this is probably the easiest part of the process, and that's just staining the wheels. Now, we use a Minwax Ebony number 2718 to dye the wheels, because it gives a nice color. It's a durable finish because it's going to get cleared over it once it dries. And it's a very simple dip and do. Basically, take a piece of dowel the size of the axle that you're going to be using, and just a simple 3-second dip and wipe it off immediately, and that seems to work best for us. Oop, got a little bit of an air bubble in there. Put a little bit of swish around there. Some areas that didn't get any stain at all. And it's going to be very obvious at that point. And simple enough, we have a black wheel. So, toss that on the drying rack, which unfortunately is behind the camera. But a piece of aluminum rod and a vise is not all that exciting. And in a matter of a minute or two, you'll have 4 perfectly done wheels. That all they have to do is dry and absorb the stain, and you're good to go. Now, what's beautiful about these, about doing it this way is it's not only fast, but it's a lot less messy than trying to put it on with a brush and taking forever to get every little spot. Okay, guys, due to other projects going on and the multi-parts of this project, it's taken about 3 days to get to this point. So, almost stuck to the paint a little too well. Alright, so the truck body itself is done. So now what I'm going to do is one of the easiest parts of it. The wheels have had a chance to dry overnight, so those are done. Those are the ones I stained with an ebony stain. Ebony stain. Oh, for crying out loud! Yes, black stuff. All right, so what I need to do now is get the axles cut for the truck, get everything glued up. So to figure out the length of the axles on this truck, pretty simple deal. What I'm going to do is let the camera focus. And then basically just take two of the wheels, put one on either side of the body, and measure the distance across. Now, try not to scratch the paint because it hasn't been clear coated yet. Alright, so what I'm looking at across the wheels all told is a little over 2.5 inches. So I like to add another 1/8 of an inch just to give the wheels some wiggle room so that they're not right up against the body. Got the axles cut. What I've already done is I've sanded a bevel onto both ends of the axle so it'll look cleaner once it's gone through the tire. Alrighty, so we have our tires, we have our axles. Now what I'm going to do at this point is really a simple fix. Since you have a blonde colored axle and a black wheel, I just take a magic marker and blacken up the end of the axles so that it matches with the wheel. It just makes things a lot easier. That way I don't have to waste any paint, don't have to waste any time, and it colors the wood just nicely. And there you go. Two black ends on an axle. So get the other one finished here and start to gluing. Now here's a nervous time for me where you have to get violent slightly with a painted product. I really hate doing that, so I'm going to have to be very careful about this. Since the axles are a press fit, once you get the glue on, then you have to tap them in with a hammer. So, tiny bit of glue, because it does not take, since these wheels are press fit onto a 1/4 inch axle, it does not take a lot of glue to get them to stay. Literally just that much. Handy dandy rubber mallet. And voila, you have a mounted wheel. Now, the fun and or terrifying part is when you have to put it through and tamp on the other wheel. As I block the camera with my arm. Alright, wipe off the extra glue so I don't glue the axle to the truck body. Come on, be nice. There we go. There you go. Come on now. Aha! We have axle. Okay, rear axle's done. I'll get this front axle glued up for you guys and be right back. And ta-da, we have a truck. It's all said and done. I put an entire project in one video and it took far too long for such a simple project. But because our projects are so involved here at the shop, I'm going to try and do the projects in 2 separate videos, but I'll do the videos back to back so it's not hard to follow. I won't end up throwing other projects into the mix while I'm working on it. I have another full project video that I'm in the works on for a red cedar coat rack that I was working on and screwed up and managed to finish, or fix. So, anyways guys, thanks for watching, and as I say every single time, because I mean it, there's more to come.